table 2 for the presentation of the colors, followed by the national anthem performed by the Marshall University Chorus under the direction of Dr. Brianna Nannon. After the performance of the national anthem, please remain standing for the invocation. As a reminder, it is heavily encouraged that you please keep your mask on and over your nose for the entirety of the ceremony.
Get the males up before we pray. Here we go. Come on. Get them up, everybody. You got them up? Live it. Love it. Loyal to it. Live it. Love it. Loyal to it. 51 years and we're still here. Some say it's a fountain. Others who truly are here today understand our mission, what we're doing here. It's a holy sight. 51 years, 75 people, we go forward. From ashes to glory, we rise up. Tragedy to triumph. It is a privilege as a Marshall alum and team chaplain for the Thundering Herd to be here to represent all of you, all of us collected together as a Marshall individual and a community. Let's pray together. Heavenly Father, Almighty God, the disciples once said it is good for us to be here in this place. Good for all of us today as part of Marshall University community to be present at this sacred site. As the 75 spires reach into the heavens, we take aim today to remember 51 years ago, 75 individuals in this Marshall family perished on this hillside in Wayne County and surrendered everything for this university. We take time to reflect the familiar smiles, the names, the personalities, the stories, the memories lost in an instant of time, only to be brought back by life, by the living memories and the love of family and friends. The reflections of the faces on the flags around the university landscape that bring a short pause and a great thought of joy, just seeing their smiles again. And lastly, we recall each individual's contributions and the hope and the will of a people to honor them all 51 years later, week to week, year to year, by playing on and rising up from the ashes. New riches of glory and many, many victories. The solemnness of this hour will be replaced and reflected always in the excitement of tomorrow. And Coach Huff and his Thundering Herd 2021 edition always take the field to compete and protect the end. Lord, I ask your blessing this day of mercy and grace be extended to all who gather here, family, friends, alumni, teammates, students, and those who join us all over this land. May we never forget. God, you are our comfort, our joy, our hope, and extend to us right now your perfect peace. And I thank you, Lord, that we truly have a special heavenly audience. We truly are Marshall. In Christ's name we pray. Amen. God bless you.
Thank you, Reverend Harvey. Today we also joined by several distinguished guests. Mayor Steve Williams and President-elect Mr. Brad Smith. We are also joined by excuse me. Thank you for being here with us. We will now hear from our speakers. Student Body Vice President Isabella Griffiths, Head Football Coach Charles Huff, Interim Athletic Director Jeff O'Malley, and Marshall University Alumni Association Director Matt Hayes.
Please be seated. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Isabella Griffiths, and I stand before you as a humble daughter of Marshall, who has had the honor of helping to plan the 51st Annual Memorial Fountain Ceremony. I'd like to take a moment to thank my committee for their hard work and dedication to making this day special. I could not have done it without all of you. After just 6 short months of holding office, I can undoubtedly say that this experience has changed my life forever. I grew up hearing the story of Marshall because I lived just down the river in Ironton, Ohio, but I never knew how special this community was until I had the chance to be a part of it. I realize that by now I've had the pleasure of hearing many of your stories, but I want to take a moment to share my story and how I believe fate brought us together. In the year 1956, my grandmother came to Marshall from Wheeling, West Virginia as a majorette for the marching band, where she met her husband, James Vaughn, who played football here. They went on to marry and have 4 children before Jim passed in a military flight test, just a few years after their time at Marshall. My aunts and uncles at the time were all less than 5 years old. Nana mustered the courage to move home to her family in Ironton, Ohio, where she had her 5th and youngest child, my mother. Years later, I grew up hearing her stories of Marshall, decided to attend, and was elected by my peers to take on this task of serving as student body vice president. Without the tragedy my grandmother experienced all those years ago, I would not be here today. I'd like to think fate brought us all together in some odd way, because I know I was meant to be here with you all, remembering the loved ones we've lost. Tragedy is a unique thing. It breaks us in ways we never thought we could be broken, and dares us to get back up and to keep going. It pushes us to be our strongest, to rise up to glory even when we think we cannot go on, which is why I've always been inspired by the strength of the friends and family of our beloved 75. To say goodbye to our family members too soon is one of the greatest tragedies one could ever face. I find myself heartbroken to think of the loss this community felt 51 years ago, and I want to extend my sincerest condolences to each and every person today who lost a loved one that night. I have a faith which teaches me God only gives us that which He knows we can handle. And while I know it is unbearably difficult to imagine what it is like to lose so many people we loved, I can see the proof that He knew this community could rise up. He knew that we could lean on one another to keep going. He knew that we needed to rise up from the ashes and honor the 75 in the only way we knew we could, by continuing their dream of playing football, which became known around the country as our 1971 Young Thundering Herd team, a family I dare say that was and still is the strongest in the nation. When we say that we are Marshall, we truly mean that we are all family and that we love each other just as I know we loved the family members we lost. As Jack Thorne once said, those we love never truly leave us. There are things that even death cannot touch. When I think of this quote, I think of all the wonderful memories I've heard of the 75 and of the way in which we carry each of them in our hearts every day. Maybe it's God's will, or maybe it's fate, but I believe that tragedy not only brought us together today to celebrate the memory of these wonderful souls, but to teach us just how precious love truly is. Tragedy can take our loved ones from us in an instant, which is why we cherish our love for one another so strongly in all of our days. I know I loved my grandmother very much, and she taught me how to love Marshall just the same, which is why I leaned on my peers at Marshall when she passed a few months ago. I feel closer to her and to all of you when we come together to celebrate traditions such as this, and I'd like to take a moment to thank you all for changing my life forever. I can never repay this community for the love it has shown me and the lessons it has taught me, but I will spend my life trying to give back in every way that I can. You will continue to inspire me and every son and daughter of Marshall University who will walk this campus in years to come, and I thank you all for allowing me the privilege of being a part of this day. We will never forget, and I will never forget. Thank you.
Thank you. One, let me say I am privileged to be a part of this celebration. It is a celebration of 75 lives. It's a celebration of this community's strength. It's a celebration of this community's passion. As your football coach, I stand here in front of a team that I asked on the beginning of last week to make sure that we honored the 75 with our performance. No, the outcome was not what I would have given my left finger for, but our performance is exactly what that fountain represents. It was strong, it was tough, and we fought to the finish. And we'll stand and we'll fight again, just like the lives and the history of the 75. We are stronger because of the 75 in this community. Isaiah 55 says, your ways are not my ways, your thoughts are not my thoughts. So I don't know why that plane went down 51 years ago. I don't know why God chose Marshall to be the strongest university in America. I don't know why God chose Huntington to be a community that represents more than a university, more than a football program. I don't know why. But I trust that God made the right decision. And I trust that everything that has happened to this community, everything that has happened to this university, everything that has happened to this football team happened for a reason. And it's not my, nor yours, or anyone else's right, role, or decision to wonder why. As I told those guys in the locker room last night, it's our job to continue to work. It's our job to continue to remember. It's our job to continue to honor. It's our job to continue to be strong. You have my commitment to the loved ones that lost that night. You have my commitment that as long as I live, I will honor the 75 with my daily performance as not only a football coach, but a father, a husband, a community member. You have my commitment that the 125 guys standing over there in black jerseys will honor this legacy for as long as they live. Not as long as they're a student here at Marshall, but as long as they live. Because of the 75, we are Marshall forever. I will not forget. My team will not forget. We are Marshall. Thank you for allowing me to be a part of this. Thank you.
Every so often, and sometimes by surprise, you'll see our good friend Red Dawson stop by the football offices. There's nothing better than to have him sit down, chat about anything, and share a few laughs. That happened this week when Red stopped by to do some interviews ahead of this special weekend. When I listened back to what he said about what happened 51 years ago today and his journey here, it really resonated with me. He spoke about how welcome he felt in our state and in our community. He talked about the perseverance it took in the aftermath of such a tragedy. He spoke with such conviction about how everyone had to come together to overcome, forge ahead, and keep moving forward for the sake of our great university, the football program, and the 75. That's what this weekend has always been for me in the 20 years that I have lived here. This is our common bond. This is part of our shared journey. This is why our football team locks arms and enters the field on this weekend every season. Once you're a part of this, it is woven into the fabric of your life forever. No one has this story. No other place has this kind of support system. And everywhere I've ever seen or I've ever been, no one has our family. Today, we always remember the 75, and we take that with us as a reminder of what it took to get us here today. And they live as part of our vision for the greatness that is yet to come in each one of us and in Marshall University. Thank you. Go Herd.
Good afternoon, family. Thank you for braving the elements and being here today. It's wonderful to be together. On behalf of the Office of Alumni Relations, the Alumni Association Board of Directors, and Marshall alumni the world over, it is my privilege to share heartfelt greetings and sincerest condolences with the families and the dearest friends of our 75. Today we come together to remember the events of November 14, 1970, 51 years ago. We remember and we celebrate the lives of the 75 precious souls aboard Southern Airways Flight 932. And we observe the everlasting impact of this event and how it has impacted our university and this community. The Marshall family, we're a very special group of people, and very precious to me. Each year, this ceremony brings us together, and it never fails. There are faces that are familiar and faces that are new, and I want to draw some special attention to a few of those faces among us today. There's a face in the crowd today that's new to many of us, Mr. Frank Wheeler. Frank is a retired executive of Southern Airways. Frank had the extremely difficult task of representing Southern Airways here in Huntington in the aftermath of the crash. Frank, you're a special member of our Marshall family, and I want everyone to know he has worked hard to maintain numerous relationships with family members of the 75 for 5 decades. This weekend marks Frank's first visit to our campus and to Huntington since November 1970. Frank, we are so glad you are with us today. We thank you for your compassionate service and your loyal friendship over the past 51 years to the family members of the 75. Please have a round of applause for Mr. Frank Wheeler. There he is. Stand up, Frank. There he is. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. God bless you, sir. In addition to Frank, there's another new face with us today, but his is a face we all know by now, and this is his first memorial fountain ceremony with us. He just spoke. You just heard from him. Our new head football coach, Coach Charles Huff. Yeah, let's hear it. Yeah, that's right. That's right. In his first season, not only has he led our team to bowl eligibility, but he also has us poised to contend for an East Division title. We're also well positioned to be in place to play for a conference title. It's awesome. Coach Huff, welcome to your first memorial fountain ceremony. We're so glad to have you and your beautiful family here as part of our Marshall family. Welcome. Now on to some other familiar faces, men that we have known for years, men for whom we have tremendous appreciation and admiration. They're celebrating their 50th reunion this year. The Young Thundering Herd has taken center stage this fall. The Marshall family has celebrated and honored the members of the 1971 Young Thundering Herd who 50 years ago resurrected our football program. How special it was earlier this season to play East Carolina at home and to welcome the Young Thundering Herd to campus for a weekend full of events and special activities. And a few weeks ago, the Young Thundering Herd served collectively as our Grand Marshal for homecoming. The 50th reunion of the Young Thundering Herd has been a special time for us to capture so many memories and great stories from the men closest to the rebirth of Marshall football. I think we can all certainly agree that the success Marshall football has enjoyed over the decades rests on the shoulders of the coaches and the players of the Young Thundering Herd. Let's recognize that right now. So here we are, all of us together in the rain, paying tribute to members of our Marshall family who we wish could be here today. The faces we can't forget, the faces we don't see today, but they're here, and they live forever in our hearts. The loved ones to whom we were forced to say goodbye to all too soon. Today, allow their faces to come to mind. And as a family, let's support one another in sharing that grief and loss. I love this quote about family from Dave Willis. He said, quote, "Family isn't defined only by last names or blood. It's defined by commitment and by love. It means showing up when they need it most. It means having each other's backs. It means choosing to love each other even on the days when you struggle to like one another. It means never giving up on each other." To me, that's what makes our Marshall family so incredibly special. Our special bond and our commitment to remaining inclusive, building and maintaining strong relationships, and our commitment to faithfully remembering and preserving the memory and the legacy of our 75. Today, as we look back and remember, let's also look ahead and be ready to celebrate and persevere in the face of triumphs and losses that are sure to come. And let's be prepared to pull together as a family to be there for one another, no matter what, because we are Marshall. Thank you.
It is at this time that I would like everyone to direct their attention to the Marshall University Choir for the singing of Homeward Bound, followed by remarks from our 37th president of Marshall University, Dr. Jerome Gilbert.
When the moon has gone up and turn, and the wind will set me racing as my journey nears its end, and the path I'll be retracing when I'm homeward bound again. Guide me not to the pasture, lead me not to the plough, set me free to find my calling, and I'll return to you somehow. In the quiet, misty morning, when the moon has gone to bed, when the sparrows stop their singing, I'll be homeward bound
Life is very precious. It's also very fragile. It can be taken from us like the loss to a thief in the middle of the night, as the Bible says. That thief took the 75 from us 51 years ago. We continue to remember and to mourn that loss. Humans are creatures of emotions, and we bring our emotions today to this plaza and lay them on the edge of the fountain in memory of the 75. Our emotion of grief is very strong, but the emotion associated with hope is similarly strong. We also bring that emotion to the fountain as we celebrate the Young Thundering Herd. As I've said almost every year, this plaza and its memorial fountain becomes a sacred place as we gather together on November 14th. It is a symbol of the tragedy, and it's a symbol of the lost 75. And more importantly, it's a symbol of hope and love. Today we mourn the 75, and we celebrate the hope of the Young Thundering Herd, who emerged 50 years ago to keep the football program alive. The lamp of Marshall University may have been dimmed by the remorse and the grief of November 14, 1970, but that beacon over dark water never went out. Out of the ashes, the phoenix emerged. As the phoenix began to rise, it was not a rapid event, but a slow rise. It was not like a flash or a burst of light, but like a small ember that started as slow glow and gradually began to gain strength to become a bright light. The Young Thundering Herd was a large part of the phoenix, as were the heartbroken members of the Marshall campus and the Huntington community who kept the flame alive against all odds. Marshall University took a tremendous blow, but came back. She persisted and held on. The Young Thundering Herd was much like the balm of Gilead that's mentioned in the Hebrew Bible. It helped soothe the wound and start the healing process. And for that, we're very grateful. 6 years ago on this very day, I sat on the plaza as a visiting president-elect to experience the somber and powerful emotion of this fountain ceremony. Today, President-elect Brad Smith sits here on this plaza as I stand here as the outgoing president. It is a day of tremendous emotions, and that's certainly not lost on me. I hope all of you here today will cherish this sacred moment at the fountain as we think and reflect on the meaning of life and the emotions of loss and new beginnings. It has been proven that Marshall is a great university with a destiny that is unstoppable. I will always be grateful that I was able to experience the spirit of Marshall and be a very small part of its history. My heart will forever be with the good people of Marshall University, and I, like you, will forever be grateful to the Young Thundering Herd and will never forget the 75. My best wishes to President-elect Brad Smith. Thank you, and may God continue to bless Marshall University.
President Gilbert, it is an honor to follow you on this stage. No matter where you go, you will always be one of the herd. Thank you for everything you've done for our university and for always embracing our 75. Thank you. Good afternoon, Herd family. We are so thankful for those of you who are here with us in the cold and rain in person, but also I want to wish a warm welcome to those of you at home and all of Herd Nation joining us on live stream. My name is Matt James, and I have the honor to serve the university as Assistant Dean of Students. In that role, I also have the privilege of working with our Student Government Association as one of their advisors. And I am so proud to say that for 51 years, our student leaders have stepped up. Everything that you see, it's beautiful, but this takes a village. It takes so many people to put this together, and it also takes the heart of one special leader to lead our church. So Bella, thank you for your leadership this year, and to all of our volunteers, most of them are up here or in the back, thank you as well. Yeah, let's give them a round of applause. Today, I join you as a member of the annual planning committee. This is a special group that I've been a part of for the last 14 years. Each year, our committee convenes to decide on a keynote speaker. And as you can imagine, this decision typically comes with much thought and reflection. This year was no different. You've heard today that we are pausing to reflect on the lives we've lost, but we're also pausing to honor the rebirth of one of the best football programs in the country. And so our committee felt it most appropriate for this year's service and this year's keynote speaker that we have a representative of the Young Thundering Herd. We tossed around names like the great Dave Walsh and Ed Carter, but knowing these men have offered inspirational keynotes in years past, we decided on a new story for this year's program, and we selected Mr. Mark Miller. In 1970, Mark was an 18-year-old from Eastern Kentucky whose family couldn't afford to send him to college. So, like many other young men at the time, Mark was planning to enter the military until, just weeks before classes began that fall, a young coach by the name of Red Dawson recruited Mark, along with several other freshman players, to prepare the varsity squad each week at practice for their next opponent. At the time, freshman players did not travel with the varsity team, and so Mark didn't make that trip to ECU that weekend. Mark says that as an 18-year-old, he struggled with the reality of what had happened. He questioned why it happened, and as someone who never experienced loss in his own life, he had never lost anyone in his family, he found himself attending funeral after funeral and experiencing survivor's guilt and overwhelming feelings of sadness and inadequacy. Because even for freshmen at the time, the bond among our athletes could be felt. In the months following the crash, however, Mark's role changed on the team as the freshmen who were left behind suddenly found themselves with a key leadership role in rebuilding the process and rebuilding the team for their fallen teammates. Understanding how difficult this must have been, I asked Mark this week in preparing his introduction, "Why did you come back?" He replied simply, "It wasn't a choice." He also credits Coach Red Dawson, one of his heroes and one of mine, as inspiring those who were left behind to pull together and to honor these families that come here each and every year on this day. Since his time as a student at Marshall, Mark enjoyed a 43-year career with Caterpillar, and he is now enjoying retirement with his wife of 45 years, and her name is Connie. The couple lives in their hometown of Prestonsburg, Kentucky, and they live in close proximity to their 3 adult children and 6 grandchildren. One of Mark's daughters is here with us today, Dr. Kate Schutz. Kate, we're very happy to have you as well. Finally, Mark says the opportunity to speak at today's ceremony is the honor of a lifetime, and he agrees with me, and I hope that all of you do as well. Would you agree that Marshall University is a truly special place? And it is the people that make it so special, yes? But it's not just the people right here. It is the 75 people that we will forever keep right here. So Marshall family, please help me give a warm welcome to our keynote speaker, Mr. Mark Miller.
Oh my. Join me in taking just a moment to remember this spot in the middle of campus is sacred ground, the heart of Marshall University. Thank you for coming today as we honor our forever 75. I wanted to start with my journey to Marshall. As a high schooler in Prestonsburg, Kentucky, I had decided to attend the Air Force Academy. My father was a sergeant in the Army Air Corps in World War II. He had a lot to do with my decision. I can remember during the holidays watching the Air Force Academy play Tennessee in a bowl game from the campus there in Colorado Springs. I was an Eagle Scout, and I can remember seeing Pikes Peak in the background. A young man that hadn't traveled a lot, I thought that would really be a way. As I started to pursue that goal, I found out that you don't get a scholarship to the academy. You join the Air Force. And to get nominated, you have to go through quite a regiment. I had to have a principal nomination from a U.S. congressman. As an 18-year-old freshman, I didn't know a lot of congressmen, but I got to meet one, and he looked at my credentials and he decided that I was going to be his principal nominee. I got my grades turned in, I got my transcript, my rank in the class, my ACT test scores. I went to Wright-Patterson Air Force Base and took a physical aptitude test. Back then I was quite the athlete, guys. I think I finished second up there out of dozens of young men, but I felt like I had aced, and I sat back awaiting an appointment to the Air Force Academy, which was 4 years basically, and then 5 years of committed service. So it was a 9-year commitment, and I was committed. I was ready to go. 7 days before I was expecting to leave for the Air Force Academy, I received a rejection letter in the mail, and it had an ACT test score in English as the reason. I can remember I had a 93 on the ACT in English, had a 98 science and math. I was quite the student. I worked very hard. But I can remember that rejection, and I called the senator, and I thought possibly he would have an answer, and he said, Mark, he said, this was a political bump. And he used a lot of words that I didn't know at the time. I was 18. He talked about constituents and political influence. And I can remember telling the congressman that I didn't know a lot about politics at that time, but I didn't think I liked them very well. Not having a backup plan, I contacted the High School Football Association, who I had rejected with an offer to play in the East-West Kentucky All-Star game, which was coming up in about 10 days. I had rejected their offer because I was going to be gone to the academy, They informed me that they had filled my slot and that the only way I could come is if someone did not show up for the week's practice prior to the game. They suggested I pack a bag and wait on a call for Sunday morning in the event that someone didn't show up. I packed a bag and I prayed all week. Sunday morning came, and about 8 o'clock the phone rang. One of the young men from Eastern Kentucky had gotten sick and he wasn't going to be able to play, so they said, "Mark, we need for you to be here." I said, "Yes, I'm on my way." I grabbed my bag, I hit the road for a 5-hour drive. My father had won a car in a raffle over the holidays. He had bought a ticket from the Veterans of Foreign War, so I had a fairly brand new American Motors Rambler. We called it the tan can. It didn't have any lining in the top. When you closed the door, the top went up, but it had 4 doors and 4 roll-down windows, no air conditioner, and an AM radio, but I was tickled to death because I had a car to make that trip. So I get there, and I pull into the parking lot, and I notice a license tag that was from Eastern Kentucky. The young man stepped out, and I recognized him as Danny Canada. Danny looked over at me, and Danny recognized me. We had been rivals there in Eastern Kentucky. He was at Pikeville, and I was in Prestonsburg. When Danny got out, we approached. And he said, "Miller?" I said, "Canada?" He said, "What are you doing here? I heard you were going to the academy." And I said, "Well, that fell through." I said, "I'm here hoping to get in the game, impress a recruiter, and get an offer for a scholarship." I said, "How about you, Danny?" I hadn't heard. He said, "I signed with Marshall." And I said, "Well, I had heard from Marshall, but like the others that I had talked with, I let them know that my heart was with the academy, and the Air Force was 19th in the country, and it was Colorado Springs, it was Pike Peak, and that's what I had chosen to do." So the backup plan had come through. So Danny hears that story and he says, "Well, hang on a minute." He walks over to a phone booth and he grabs a coin out of his pocket and he puts it in the payphone and he makes a call. And he gets Coach Red Dawson on the telephone. And he talks to Red for a minute, and he says, "Mark, Red, Coach Dawson wants to talk to you." He handed the phone to me. I'm standing there in Bowling Green, Kentucky, 5 hours from home, and I'm talking to Coach Dawson on the phone. And he said, "Mark, what's happened?" And I told him about the academy, and he said, and I said, "I'm here hoping to get in the game and earn a scholarship through a performance in that All-Star game." He said, "Well, why don't you come to Marshall and play football here?" I said, "With or without a scholarship, Coach Dawson?" He didn't hesitate. He said, "With, of course." I said, "Yes, sir." Thank you very much. With that, I was on my way. I think as I look back and I think about that day, that conversation, one of the things that, I've got a clip on my papers here, so. I wanted to share with you all today, when I made that decision and I accepted that, of course I did with my whole heart, I had never been on this campus. I had never seen Fairfield Stadium. I had never personally met the coaching staff. It was quite a commitment on my part. But I felt comfortable to step forward into the unknown as I felt the comfort of God within me. I'll forever be grateful to both Danny Canada, one of my teammates here at Marshall for all 4 years, and to Coach Dawson. And thanks be to God for answered prayer. I'm often asked what was one of my favorite memories of being with the varsity on campus. During our first week, the varsity decided to join us all together in the cafeteria, all the freshmen. They formed a circle and they put a chair in the middle, and I thought, boy, bull in the ring, you know, what's this going to be? But they pulled us up one at a time. And you got to go back to 1970. Hair was a pretty good thing. You know, the Beatles had come on board and everybody had, I saw some pictures with my daughter inside how long my hair was back then. And what they did, they set us in the chair one at a time, and they burr haircut if you've never had one, kind of like the military smooth job. So they shaved the heads, and then they asked you to step on the chair and sing your high school fight song. So I stepped up, they shaved my head. We all had, I told this story at the cemetery a few weeks ago, and I picked on Lucy Ann. I said, we had the Lucy Ann tan, but yet we had this white head. But I stepped up, got the haircut, stepped up, and I didn't really remember my fight song the high school fight song, but I got out. Part of what I said back then was, fight, 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 and win this game tonight. And when I finished, there was an awful lot of laughter coming from the varsity players, and I really didn't understand why. But they were making fun of my Eastern Kentucky twang at that time, and anything that had an I in it was fight and tonight. And they were making fun, so I finished, stepped down, took my place, and next up, and two stories about one of my teammates. There's several here from that 70 freshman team, but Danny Canada was right behind me. He was next up. Danny was a first-team All-State fullback and a place kicker from Pikeville. He was quite the personality. Danny stepped up next. God, his hair wasn't as long as mine, but after they shaved it, he looked as cute as he could be, Danny. But he steps up, they shine his head, they put him up on there. And Danny stepped up and he looked around the crowd, that personality that he had, and he said, you've just met my good friend, Mark Miller. And he said, you all have collectively determined that he's from the a-hole of the world. He said, well, I'm Dan Canada, and I'm from 30 miles up in there. That's probably distasteful, but when people ask me about one of my favorite stories of the varsity, that comes to mind every time. So to Danny, I appreciate it. And it is 30 miles from Prestonsburg to Pikeville down US 23, so he at least had some truth in the conversation. I think Matt mentioned that NCAA rules prohibited freshmen from inclusion on the varsity. We couldn't travel with the herd and we couldn't play the games. But for the next 3 months, from the time we got here in mid-August until November, we were basically, our job was individual and team opposition for the varsity during practice. We lived together in the dorm, we ate together at the training table, and we practiced together. We quickly grew close to our teammates and looked up to them in many ways. We had become family by mid-November as we prepared for the East Carolina game. We were there to see them off on Friday the 13th as they boarded the bus for the short trip out to the airport to catch Southern Flight 932 for the flight down to Greenville, North Carolina. As my home was only some 80 miles away, I took the tan can home for the weekend. My father and I listened to the game Saturday on the radio. It was a competitive game, but we lost that day. Some hometown friends asked if I'd like to attend revival services at a local church. I wasn't the most devout 18-year-old, but I thought it was a good chance to see a lot of high school friends. So to answer the question that we've all been asked, Where were you on November the 14th between 6 and 8 p.m.? I was in church. I hustled home to get out of my coat and tie, slip into something more comfortable. I was planning to attend a dance at the local community college in town, PCC, and Prestonsburg Community College. As I was ready to leave, a text message came across the TV, Channel 3 here in Huntington. There'd been a plane crash at Tri-State Airport. No details available at this time. My father asked, could that have been the plane carrying our ball team? We remained glued to the television as the details slowly came in about the tragic crash of Southern Flight 932. Dozens of community members arrived at our home to console my parents as they thought I was on the plane. I locked myself in my bedroom as I had no idea what to say. I was in shock. It was several days before I could speak to anyone as I had so much grief. The sadness was overwhelming. Upon arriving back on campus, we spent several days attending memorial services and funerals, something I had never been to before. Parents of our fallen teammates came to the dorm to collect their personal items. They would ask members of the freshman 70 team, what was he doing for the weeks prior? What's this item in his room and the significance of it? I had never experienced such sadness. I truly struggled daily. I felt guilt if I laughed aloud or enjoyed anything. I wasn't sure of the future of our team or if we'd even have a team again. Campus was covered with sadness. Silence prevailed. Classes were canceled. Lack of direction was prevalent. We gathered together as a young herd, but one with little or no direction. Campus chaplain Father Scott and other university staff were working diligently to counsel each of us and ensure that we were safe. Faith, hope, and after some time, a personal and team commitment was made to rebuild, as that's what our fallen teammates would want. Coaches Red Dawson and Mickey Jackson were amazing in that they consoled us. They led us to the belief that we were here for a reason, to rebuild in honor of our lost members of the Marshall football program. There are no words that I can share today that will explain the why of this tragic loss. No words that will ensure peace of mind to the families and the friends. Personally, as an 18-year-old member of the freshman team, I struggled with the reality of what occurred. Why did this happen? I experienced survivor's guilt, overwhelming sadness, feelings of inadequacy. How best to honor those lost, to comfort their families? How could we identify the best approach to heal and to move forward? Let me share with you the lyrics from Broken Halos, a song written by country music sensation Chris Stapleton. He had had a young friend, much too young, that had passed away from pancreatic cancer, and he wrote this song. I can't sing, but I'll talk you through a lyric or two. Seen my share of broken halos, folded wings that used to fly. They're all gone wherever they go, broken halos that used to shine. Don't go looking, not meant to know the answers. They belong to the by and by. I invite you to check that song out. It's one of my favorites. I'm a simple guy. This song seemed to answer my forever question. Why did this have to happen? Why did God allow our families, our university, our community to suffer such a tragedy? We're not meant to know the answers. They belong to the by and by. Yea, though I walk, Psalm 23, yet will fear no evil, for thou art with me. Thy rod and thy staff, they comfort me. I carry a staff today, not that I need it to walk, but I wanted to share with you that this staff was given to me in August of 2002 by Russell Rice of East Point, Kentucky, who had made this beautiful keepsake for me at age 83. Russell, often referred to as kindness personified, was born on November the 14th, 1919. Russell, happy birthday in heaven. Russell received a full scholarship to play football at Western Kentucky University. He stayed only 2 weeks and hitchhiked home. He loved God and country and was an avid craftsman. Russell passed away in 2012 at the age of 92. Russell taught Sunday school for many years at the Little Pain First Church of God, where my wife attended, and was an avid fan of our high school team and the Thundering Herd. This staff carries the names of all 36 players that were on the plane. Marcel Latterman, James Robert Patterson, Larry Saunders, all of the names and of the coaches. There's also a space on it that says Co-Captain Nate Ruffin, home with injury. Used his flipper in practice, and he had a bone spur there, and a ligament had gotten hurt, and his arm was numb. They were afraid that he would lose use of his arm, so they kept him out, and Nate stayed home, didn't make the trip. Another up on top says, in memory of the Marshall University football team, 11-14-70 by Russell Rice, August 2002. Here at the top it says 75 people lost their lives, but only the players, not all 75 people, but he wanted me to have my team. This is one of my most prized possessions for sure. I wanted to share it with you today. I will say that we're joined today. I had called to get permission to talk about Russell, and we've got Russell's daughter with us today, Sharon Kay and T. Watkins. Welcome to the Marshall campus. And thank you, Russell. If here today, our 70 teammates would be so proud of the young herd, the university for carrying on our football program, for honoring their memory, for ensuring that they will never be forgotten, and that their legacy will be of a football program like no other. From the ashes we arose, from the nation's college with the losingest record of the 70s, to the college, the university in America that had the most win in the 90s. Today we are among the nation's most respected programs, and I'm sure we'll stay there. Well done to my teammates, to the university administrative staff, our supportive alumni, our community at large, and most of all, the families of our 75 lost on November 14, 1970. Together, we experienced the worst sports-related tragedy in U.S. history. My bond with Marshall is forever an intricate part of who I am. I stand proudly as a son of Marshall. It defines my love and my commitment for family. We are Marshall. Special thanks to the young herd and congratulations on our 50th anniversary. May God continue to bless the families, to bless Marshall University, and to bless the USA. Thank you, be safe, and be kind. Thank you.
At this time, if you are laying a rose, please make your way to the area beside the fountain. If you would, please now direct your attention to the fountain for the laying of the wreath by the Cerrito Fire Department and Athletic Director Jeff O'Malley, followed by the laying of the 75 roses. Please now direct your attention to the fountain for the laying of the 75 roses.
James Michael Adams. We're not ready. Mark Rayburn Andrews. Michael Francis Blake. Dennis Michael Blevins. Willie Bluford Jr.
Larry Brown. Thomas Wayne Brown. Roger Keith Childers. Stuart Spence Cottrell. Richard Lee Dardinger.
David Grant DeBoard. Kevin Francis Gilmore. David Dearning Griffith Jr. Arthur Harris. Robert Anthony Harris.
Bobby Wayne Hill. Joe Lee Hood. James Thomas Howard, Jr. Marcelo Latterman. Richard Adam Leck.
Barry Winston Nash. Patrick J. Norrell. James Robert Patterson. Scotty Lee Reese. John Anton Rapassi, Jr.
Larry Saunders. Charles Allen Saylor. Arthur Kirk Shannon. Lionel Ted Shoebridge. Alan Jean Skeens.
Jerry Dodson Stainback. Robert James Van Horn. Roger Arnie Vanover. Freddie Clay Wilson. John Patton Young.
Thomas Jonathan Zaboral. Ricky D. Tolley. Herbert Brackett. Albert Corelli, Jr. Frank Loria.
James M. Moss II. Charles E. Couts. Eugene J. Morehouse. Brian R. O'Connor. Gary Wilson George.
Jeffrey P. Nathan. James Joseph Schroyer. Donald Tackett, Jr. Donald Booth. Captain Frank Abbott.
Jerry R. Smith. Charlene Pote. Danny Deese. Patricia Vaught. Charles Arnold.
Rachel Arnold. Joseph Chambers. Peggy Chambers. Ray Hegley. Shirley Hegley.
Arthur Harris Sr. E.O. Heath. Elaine Heath. James Gerald. Cynthia Gerald.
Kenneth Jones. Michael Prestera. Glenn Preston. Phyllis Preston. Courtney Phillips Proctor.
H.D. Proctor. Merle Ralsting. Helen Ralston. Parker Ward. Normal Weichman. I'm gonna wait until I get over there. I'm gonna wait until I get over there. Just say. Now that a rose has been laid on the memorial fountain for each and every soul that perished on this day 51 years ago, let us pay our respects by taking a moment of silence to honor the lives lost. Thank you. As a tribute to the 75, the song Fly Again will be performed by Sierra Doss, Zach Doss, and Stephen Schumann. Please take your seats.
In the darkness, in the night, when hope is gone and sad's the song, there is light. When it's hidden, it seems gone. When all you love comes crashing down, you carry on. When the sirens, they scream too loud, and the words you're choking on, they won't come out. When our world comes down, but it's us who's falling down, we will mend these broken wings, we will fly again.
In the wreckage, in the flame, where pain is strong and nights are long, we will not be chained. From the rubble, oh, from the ash, for those we lost, to those we love, we will hold fast. When the silence, it screams too loud, and the words you're choking on, they won't come out. When our world comes down, but it's us who's falling now, we will mend these broken wings, we will fly again. a prayer. These legacies will last. In our hearts we'll hold on hope and know this too shall pass. Know this song won't be our last.
Good afternoon, all. As we are close to the end of the memorial ceremony, I want to thank you all for joining us today to help commemorate the 75. I'm so blessed to be here with all of you. I'm Melissa Parks, the student body president and a daughter of Marshall, but most significantly, I'm a member of the Thundering Herd family. 4 years ago, on this very weekend, it just so happened to be my very first visit to Marshall University. After that visit, I decided that the fresh start and deep roots, new roots that I so deeply desired would be made 5 hours from home here in Huntington. I remember people saying, "Why Marshall? That's so far away." It didn't take long for me to figure out that why. I simply cannot describe how appreciative I am of this community and what it has provided me. Being a part of this family and moments especially like right now and through this weekend are experiences worth more than any money, and I can truly never repay those that have made it so special. So thank you to all of you. That weekend, I never could have known I would be so deeply connected to this family that I would be standing here in front of you on the significant day in Marshall history. But I am humbled to serve this university and to honor those that came before me by helping to remember the ones we so tragically lost. During my time here, I have learned a very valuable lesson from the 75 and their loved ones. I've experienced what it means to be a part of something much bigger than myself. We're all just one piece, one important piece, I might add, to this remarkable puzzle that makes up a story, a purpose, a mission, and a family that we all know as Marshall University. I cannot express what a great pleasure it is to say that I am a part of this family. I did not expect to have so much pride in an institution and feel so deeply rooted and embraced in a new place so quickly. But I have to say, no matter where I go, Marshall will always be a home, a feeling of belonging, if you will. From the time I stepped foot on campus, I've experienced a connection that I cannot explain that is unique to this community of Huntington, West Virginia. It is something that words cannot pin down, and it's something you truly must experience for yourself to really grasp. But once you do, you'll feel the love and support that radiates through this community as we share the heartaches and celebrations of life together. Today is one of those heartaches that we remember together as we gather around the memorial fountain to honor the lives of 75 that were lost on November 14th, 1970, as many have stood here and done so before me. I would like to share this quote by which the author is unknown. "When we lose someone we love, we must learn not to live without them, but to live with the love that they left behind." I may not have had the privilege to personally know the 75 that this community lost, but I do personally know the love they left behind for Marshall, as I too share that deep love, and in this way we are all united together. No matter what walk of life a person may come from, every student that chooses to be a son or daughter of Marshall instantly becomes a part of our family, and will get to experience this bond to Marshall University and to those that have come before and will come in the future. The 75 are forever a part of Marshall, making them a part of you, making them a part of me, and making them a part of every other member in this family. What I mean is this: as you look around and you see friendly faces and a sea of Kelly Green, you know we are not living without the 75, but rather they're living through these memorial traditions and in our hearts, within the love we each treasure for Marshall. And that is something we can hold on to and cherish for years to come. Through hard times, we lean on one another. As losing a loved one bears so much weight on our heart, even still 51 years later. But as we continue to grow stronger, we support each other because we are a family and we are Marshall. The people that I've been so blessed to get to know during these past 4 years while helping with the memorial ceremonies have shared stories with me of the ones they've lost. Just over a month ago, Lucianne Call Couts hosted Bella and I at her father's ceremony to get inducted into the Hall of Fame at Rock Hill. She shared the memories of her father at Rock Hill and at Marshall. This is only one example, but through this weekend, Friday at the dinner and yesterday at the game, I've gotten the pleasure to hear from so many of the family members and the players from the Young Thundering Herd who shared their stories as well. It is truly times like this which allow the special legacies of the 75 to live on through generations. No matter where I go, I will continue to share and be humbled by these stories of Marshall's history. It is my hope that the current and future sons and daughters of Marshall will continue on this tradition to bond in joy and in sorrow with those who witnessed the hearts of the ones that we lost on this day in 1970. And the 75 will never be forgotten, nor will the love they left behind for Marshall University. Thank you, and God bless. We will now honor the 75 by ending the memorial ceremony and singing the Marshall University Alma Mater, sung by Marshall University's chorus under the direction of Dr. Brianna Nannon. If you all please join in standing.
There will be 3 more events today, of which you are all invited to attend. First, we will be laying a wreath at the cemetery immediately after this ceremony. Second, there will be showing a special clip with some of our football seniors, followed by the movie We Are Marshall, for any student and family member who wishes to attend at 4:30 in the gym. There will be free hot chocolate and popcorn available for purchase. Please bring a blanket as it will be chilly. And lastly, we will have a vigil at 7:37. Please arrive by 7:20. At this time, I'd like to dismiss everyone and thank you all once again for coming to today's ceremony. We will dismiss family members first, followed by students and community members. Thank you.